Today on the Bandrew Says podcast, we're going to be analyzing the Vox Adpocalypse and the war on YouTube, so go ahead and stick around. Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome back to episode 171 of the BSP. My name is Bandrew. This is what I says. Like always, down below there are timestamps of everything that I talk about, so you can skip around and save a couple of minutes. But if you got the time, I would appreciate you checking out the entire episode. If you want a different version of the show, either audio or video, you can find that at bandrewsays.com. And if you want different educational podcasts or informational podcasts, you can find those at geeksrising.com. Now let's jump right into the analysis of the Vox Adpocalypse and the war on YouTube. And I will start by saying I am just lost here. I have spent probably 20 plus hours over the last week reading up on stories, doing research, writing outlines, deleting all of it, and starting all over again. It has been an absolute nightmare. So let me go ahead and provide you with a very brief summary of what has been going on. There are a couple of things that kickstarted this entire hullabaloo around YouTube. There is Carlos Maza and Steven Crowder. Carlos Maza is a political commentator who makes videos for Vox, who has hundreds of millions of dollars of investment from NBC Universal, so it could be considered legacy media. Then we have Steven Crowder, who is also a political commentator, but more with a comedic leaning, and he is more of an independent creator. In Steven Crowder's rebuttal videos of Carlos Maza, he mocked Carlos's ethnicity, sexuality, and lisp. And because of that, there are multiple write-ups from different news outlets claiming that YouTube is supporting a homophobic and racist political commentator, Steven Crowder. But that's not where the hatred for YouTube ends, because we had an article come out from CNET that was targeting angry video game commentators. That's right, angry people on the internet making videos. What a shame. Shame, YouTube. You let people who are angry talk on your platform. How dare you? And that's not where it ends either. The New York Times released an article claiming that YouTube is a great radicalizing tool for the far right. And that's a very brief summary of what has been going on the last week or two surrounding YouTube. It has been crazy, and I will admit that I may be too deep or a bit too close to all the outrage, and I may be blowing this out of proportion in my mind, and I don't think you'll hear that from other news outlets or journalists or bloggers or YouTubers admitting their inadequacies and their biases up front when covering a story. What a shocker! There's honesty out there. What are you thinking? You can be honest? I didn't know you could do that. Let's talk about my concern with all of this stuff, though. I am just simply worried about the viability of YouTube as a career choice or as an income source for the independent content creator. It's possible that it will be fine. It's likely that it will be fine. YouTube is very resilient. They have the backing of Google. They are not going to let the money just disappear and dry up. They will fight to the death for that. I guarantee it, because YouTube loves money, just like Google, just like every corporation. They love money. They're not going to give up. But the attacks on YouTube as a platform and the attacks on YouTubers themselves seem to be growing in frequency and severity, I would say, as well as the pressure being put on advertisers for their automatic ads being placed on controversial content. All of these attack vectors seem to be getting used a lot more to attack YouTube and the people on them, and that's what's concerning. Because I think these articles being written and these tweet storms being put out have the possibility to wipe out a large number of creators' monetization, because it's been a bit too volatile and risky for these advertisers, where they get attacked for having an automatic ad placed in front of a creator that somebody doesn't like. So these advertisers may just say, screw it, throw up their arms, and walk away, meaning those advertising dollars disappear. But even though that's my main concern about what could happen, there's something that bothers me even more about all this crap going on. It's the fact that these two giants in political commentary, Steven Crowder and Vox Media, are battling this entire thing out publicly and riling up both of their sides. And guess who's caught in the middle of that? The independent content creators. And I don't think either party here is really in the clear. Both parties are at fault in my eyes. First up with Steven Crowder, I don't think he should have made any jokes about or even brought up Carlos Maza's lisp, his sexuality, or his race. As I said last week, if you are rebutting somebody's ideas or battling somebody's political stance, attack the ideas, not the identity, because all that will do is degrade the quality of your argument. I understand that Steven Crowder was making jokes, and there are other late-night talk show hosts and political comedians who have said stuff that's pretty bad as well, if not worse, but it seems like nowadays, unless you have hundreds of millions of dollars behind you, you just can't get away with it. If I were Steven Crowder, I would not take down the videos, but hear me out. I would consider going back to those videos that are rebutting Carlos, that are getting a lot of criticism, and consider cutting out the jokes about his sexuality, about his lisp, and then leave the videos up. YouTube has rolled out this editing feature in the Creator Studio. You could leave them up, and then the videos would be solely attacking Carlos Maza's ideas rather than stuff that is protected, like his sexuality, his race, his speaking pattern. I don't think that's a protected class if you have a lisp, but you get the idea. But at the same time, I understand why Crowder doesn't want to take down the videos, because in his mind, in his political side, he is making a stand for free speech. And before you jump down to the comments and start clickety-clacking away, yes, I know YouTube is a private platform, and currently it is fully within their legal right to take down or limit certain types of speech. And now let's talk about Carlos, who I also think made a bunch of mistakes, even though he is positioning himself as the victim here. I think Carlos went about addressing the issue in 100% the wrong way. He seems to have addressed this in a way that would cause maximum outrage and maximum damage to YouTube, Crowder, and all creators. Because of this, all creators on the platform are at risk, including LGBTQ+ creators, and he does not seem to care in the slightest about the potential collateral damage here. He just wants to get maximum outrage, get people to hate Steven Crowder, get people to hate YouTube, and force change regardless of how it may negatively impact all creators on the platform. Additionally, I think there is some serious hypocrisy on his part. He has claimed that harassment is dangerous and that jokes are hurtful. I won't deny that. Being made fun of sucks. Being doxxed, I imagine, sucks. Being harassed absolutely sucks. I won't deny that. But do you know what sucks even more than being harassed? Getting physically assaulted. Assault and battery, getting stuff thrown at you, which is exactly what Carlos has tweeted about, advocating that people milkshake conservatives, or as he puts it, far-right people, and harass them in person. He said, milkshake them all, humiliate them at every turn, make them dread public organizing. Go ahead and call me crazy, but I would much rather be made fun of online by some asshole that I disagree with than have stuff thrown at me in public. That's just me though, I'm crazy. I would much rather somebody throw words at me rather than actual physical objects. You crazy? So there's the hypocrisy on his part. He has said, oh no, harassment's terrible, harassment's bad, violence is bad. But here he is calling for violence and harassment in person, not just making fun of somebody in a video. But to solidify the fact of why I think he addressed this in the wrong way, Carlos works for Vox. They have hundreds of millions of dollars in investments from large corporations. That tells me that they likely have a very good attorney on retainer. Carlos is getting harassed because he made a video for his company. Now, I may be wrong here, but I think that would likely give you access to the lawyer that's on retainer to deal with this issue in a boardroom with YouTube, with Steven Crowder, with anything, and that would limit the damage that you're doing to the entire platform as a whole. That's my stance on Crowder and Carlos Maza. I think both of them are in the wrong, and I think we're all screwed because they're doing this publicly. It's ridiculous. But next, we got those two new players. We got CNET and the New York Times. So as far as CNET, they wrote an article exposing the issue on YouTube with angry gaming content. Can you believe that? CNET released an article complaining about how angry and toxic video game commentators are on the platform. I could swear that this was a joke and that this is a troll, but it doesn't seem to be. In the midst of this article, they talk about a channel called The Quartering, who made a video criticizing another journalist's review of a video game. And in this article, they talk about contacting advertisers that were seen on his video and asked them if they knew their ads were on his video. What did that lead to? The advertisers decided to pull advertisements from The Quartering's channel, which is fully within their right. But this is such a moronic question. I think that is so stupid. Of course, in my opinion, anyone and everyone should probably know that a company that is running ads on YouTube does not know every video or every channel that their ad appears on. And the advertisement appearing on that channel does not mean that they support it or those are ideas that they hold as a corporation. That is absolutely ridiculous. There are hundreds of thousands of channels that these ads show up on. So the fact that you're asking this question, did you know that your ad showed up on The Quartering's channel? Of course not. That is just an absolutely ridiculous standard to hold these companies to. Although I think that might be exactly what they're going for. Hey, you can't run ads on YouTube because we'll shame you for it. You know where you can put your ad dollars? On our platform, because you know that we have editors in place and we will charge you 10 times more and you will get 10 times less performance in your ads, but at least it's safe and at least we won't shame you for running ads on our website. That's what I think's going on. That's the first new player and it's absolutely ridiculous. Oh, did you know your ad showed up on this video? No, they didn't know that. And no, it doesn't mean that they support the ideas espoused in those videos. What a silly, silly question. Then we had the New York Times, which in my opinion was a bit more of an egregious thing. The New York Times released an article titled "The Making of a YouTube Radical." And to illustrate this point, to illustrate this narrative that they're making, they interviewed a single guy who had apparently, according to him, gotten sucked into the far right and then he was pulled out of it. The point being made here is that the algorithm on YouTube is radicalizing people to the far right because far-right commentators have found a way to manipulate the algorithm and surface their content. That's the argument being made. And the thing that's most absurd about this entire article to me is the fact that they are using a single person's viewing history as the entire dataset and backbone to this article to make the claim and to pose the narrative that YouTube radicalizes people to the far right. The thing that's crazy about this thing to me is the clear bias in the framing. You could have just as easily framed this entire article or titled it "How YouTube De-Radicalizes People," because that also happened with this one data set that you looked at. They found far-right videos and said, I like that idea. But then they found far-left or videos that were debunking those far-right ideas and said, well, now I like that. So yeah, YouTube maybe radicalized him for a couple of months, but then he was de-radicalized by YouTube as well. So the framing of this article, in my opinion, shows the clear bias and the narrative that they want to push, that YouTube is not a safe space, and it makes me seriously question what the motivation to frame it this way really was. I'm guessing it's monetary. I'm guessing they want to destroy YouTube. That's the second new player. So let's go through my thoughts of this entire debacle going on YouTube right now. My thoughts on all of these journalists and articles is somewhat negative, and of course I will explain. I have been on YouTube since 2005. I understand how YouTube works fairly well. I won't say that I'm an expert on the platform, but I do understand it pretty well. I understand it, I would say, better than the majority of people because I watch a lot of it. I create content on it. I have seen all the changes since 2005 to 2019. I understand it fairly well. I have also followed some of these people that have had hit pieces written about them, or after the hit pieces have come out, I've said, that seems a little bit fishy, and followed them. Do you know what I saw when I looked at these creators who are painted as racists, sexists, bigots, homophobes, or Nazis? I didn't see what they were being labeled as. I didn't see racists, sexists, bigots, homophobes, or Nazis. I saw creators who in many cases are trying to be comedians and pushing the line a bit too far. See PewDiePie. He makes terrible, terrible jokes that are way too far. And he is labeled a Nazi by a lot of these news outlets, and I think that is completely unfair, and it shows some irresponsibility with how they frame the articles. And then we have Alex Jones, where I saw a blatant mischaracterization of what he said in regards to calling for violence. I have played the exact clip on this show before. It was completely mischaracterized about what he was saying. So my argument would be that YouTube is not the one radicalizing people or eroding faith in these legacy news outlets. It's the shoddy reporting and ill-informed or poorly framed opinion pieces that are pushing people away from you and eroding faith in your establishments. These articles that are being written may be able to trick people who don't watch YouTube into thinking that it's a bastion of hate speech and bigotry and a great radicalizing force for the far right. That PewDiePie's a Nazi, that Philip DeFranco is alt-right. But the people who actually use YouTube are not going to be fooled, and you are just alienating them and pushing them farther away. And who is the main user base for YouTube? Younger people. So you better expect that when the younger people grow up and it's time to sign up and start paying for news, you're not going to be getting their money, and it is going to become extremely more financially painful for you because you have alienated all of them. What terrible, terrible business practices, and what a huge mistake you are all making by straight up lying about YouTubers and what is going on here. You are mischaracterizing it, and you are alienating the entire YouTube user base. Ridiculous. Now, as far as my recommendations, let's go ahead and wrap it up by talking about what I recommend you as a creator can do. First and foremost, don't be a dick online. That goes without saying. It's something that I have always advocated for. It's why I don't think attacking people or mocking them or making fun of them, unless you have their permission to do so, is a good thing. It sounds easy enough though, right? Well, that's where you're wrong. Unless, of course, you're a milquetoast, boring person like me, then it's a breeze. It's really easy not to offend people and to not be a dick if you are just boring and you talk about microphones and you say, this is what you should do as a creator. See, I can mock myself, I can make fun of myself, but if anybody else does it, I'm coming for you. I am going to report you, get you demonetized and deplatformed. I hate to say it, but that's exactly why you probably shouldn't be making jokes about people. It sucks that we're at that point where making fun of somebody could lead to your career being destroyed, but that's the climate we're in. I don't know if you want to die on that hill, if you want to fight that battle, but if you don't, if you just want to make videos online and you want to make some money from it, maybe don't make jokes about people, especially if they are a minority or a marginalized person or come from a minority or a marginalized group. Don't do it if you want to have an easy go of it online. Secondly, if you have a large audience, maybe you shouldn't criticize anybody else. Even if you explicitly state, do not contact, dogpile, or interact with this person, still don't do it. Because it seems like you can be punished for the bad behavior of your audience under the guise of you dog whistling them. Calling out bad ideas is no longer okay because there are crazy people in certain people's audiences who will go and harass somebody and attack somebody. Even if you say, do not do this, you are going to be held, maybe not legally, but socially responsible for that action of that crazy person or crazy group of people in your audience. So if you have a large audience, maybe just don't criticize or mention anybody. Just sit there and criticize yourself. That's the only type of content you can make. That's the only type of content that's allowed. Secondly, get your own monetization platform ready. YouTube is being pressured from all sides. I don't know if monetization is going to be around forever. I have also seen places like Patreon, PayPal, Square, and even actual banking institutions close somebody's account because they get so much pressure. And of course, those are extreme examples, but that is just showing you that it can and has happened in the past. But if I wanted to ensure that I have a consistent income stream, I would set up a contribution system that you yourself own on your own site, on your own domain, that you yourself own. Do you see the trend here? You must own all little areas that you possibly can, because it is dangerous to make content and rely on somebody else's distribution platform or payment system, because that all can be attacked by people who don't like you. This is something that you can actually see being done right now. There is the No Agenda podcast. There is Dave Rubin, who has been working on this. And there is Jordan Peterson, who has also been working on this. They all have their own payment systems to ensure that if there is public outrage surrounding them, that they still have access to that funding from their audience. You may be thinking, but Bandrew, I'm not edgy. I'm not edgy at all. I am a milquetoast content creator. That's fine. That's fine. Keep your current monetization platforms and keep your current monetization options open. Have your YouTubes, your PayPals, your Patreons, your Twitch, your everythings. But I would suggest having that hub that you own in case these platforms disappear one day or are forced to remove monetization, or something you said 5 years ago becomes offensive tomorrow and they try to demonetize you and take away all of your income streams. That's it. That's all I'm going to say here. I am not going to dive any farther. I spent 20 plus hours trying to come up with something here. I would love to hear from you. What do you think the main issue is here? What do you think the motivation for the attacks are? What is going on, I guess? Are you banging your head against the wall too? Because I certainly am. I will throw some links in the show notes down below. We have 2 blog updates from YouTube. We have Verge on homophobic harassment, CNET on angry YouTubers, and the New York Times on YouTube being a radicalization platform. That is it for news. Now let's jump to what you had to say. And the first comment comes from Roger, and he says, I'm sorry you have a small audience because you seem to be a very reasonable dude. And to be honest, I think you kind of represent most people's stand. You really don't want to get political, but you keep getting dragged into it. Actually, you know what? Come to think of it, I'm actually glad that you have a small audience because that might very well be the reason that you seem to be reasonable. Which bears the question, do you think you would feel as comfortable stating your honest opinion as you do now if you had more than 1 million people hearing you and criticizing you? Sorry about the men in black. Roger, that is a great question, and no need to apologize for the small audience over here. I actually enjoy having a smaller audience. I personally believe that as your audience grows, your responsibility grows, and I spend hours every single week preparing for this show because I feel like I have an obligation and a responsibility to be well prepared and to provide accurate information to the 1,000 people who watch and listen to this show. So if I had 50,000 people who watched and listened, the feeling of responsibility would be significantly higher, and I would have to spend many more hours preparing, which currently I just don't have because I still do have a full-time job and I still do run the podcasted YouTube channel. I would probably need a whole team to keep my foot out of my mouth if I had the 1 million people that you mentioned in your comment. That would be a crazy thing, and I don't know if I would like that. I don't know if I would like that level of attention. Great question, and I appreciate you rather. Roger. Next comment comes from Chucky Gold, and he says, "You're my favorite non-famous podcaster. Your voice is like a plain bagel, but with the SM7B, it's a plain bagel with extra butter." Chucky Gold, you are an absolute nut. I love this comment so much. If you mean that I am going to cause heart disease by all the extra butter, I agree. But thanks, man. I am glad that you like the SM7B on my voice as well. I love it because it tames the obnoxiousity of my voice a little bit more. Thank you very much, Chucky. Appreciate you. You absolute nut. Next comment and final comment comes from Being Blind Show. He says, "This whole I'm offended movement is really getting old. The funny part about it is the world around me still seems like it always has been. It's only online and on TV. I hear these weirdos ranting. I guess it makes sense though. If I was that thin-skinned, I'd never leave the house either. Then Chucky Gold chimes in and says, I said the same thing yesterday to a buddy. It's like this fake virtual online world is full of overdramatics and conflicts. Yet when you step outside in the real world, it's like, where is all this craziness I'm bombarded with when I sign onto my social media accounts? And Being Blind Show finalizes it with saying, I am glad I'm not the only one to notice that. BBS or Being Blind Show and Chucky Gold, thank you so much for sharing this and having this interaction in the comments. This is something that I think is very important to remember and realize, and a lot of us just forget it. The outrage doesn't seem to seep out of social media or legacy media, unless, of course, you're at some kind of protest. That's where it seems all of this hatred culminates in the real world, these protests. So if you're not interacting in these protests, everything seems fine. I have never once gotten into a screaming match with somebody in person or had anyone scream at me saying, hey guys, is toxic masculinity. I have never encountered that in the real world. It's all online. So maybe they're all Russian bots. Maybe it's a different country doing social warfare to try to destroy the fabric of the United States. Conspiracy corner? Maybe. I just don't think it really translates to the real world. So I think it's important that we do keep things in perspective. But the reason I think it's still important to address the outrage and all of that is the internet is playing a bigger and more important part in all of our lives. So we still need to address it. But we need to remember that the real world doesn't have this outrage culture, or it's not on the surface. It's not being screamed at you the entire time. Great comment, and I appreciate both of you so much. Let's jump to my favorite part of the show, the Ask Bandrew segment. All right. If y'all got any questions, go ahead and send them to askbandrew@gmail.com, and I will answer them on an upcoming episode of the podcast. If you do want to send in a voice recording, you can send it to the email, or I have finally set up SpeakPipe, where you can just record directly on the website, on your phone, on your microphone, anything. You can find that at bandrewscott.com or bandrewsays.com. Check it out. The only thing we're answering today comes from the eldest bro, and he is the first person to submit using SpeakPipe. Take it away, eldest bro of the Fourth Wall Alliance.
Greetings, Bandrew Eldest here with a quick little question to test out your new SpeakPipe. If you were given an unlimited amount of money to upgrade your setup however you feel, what would be some things that you'd purchase for your said unlimited money upgrade for your recording studio / computer setup? Sincerely, Eldest.
Eldest bro, thank you so much for always being so dang supportive and always just willing to test stuff out for me. You are a legend. Appreciate you so much. If you want to see what Eldest works on, go check out Fourth Wall Alliance on YouTube. Awesome gent. Let's get into this question. What would I do? What kind of upgrades, what kind of purchases would I make if I had unlimited funding? First, I have spoken about this the entire time I have run this podcast. I would buy a cabin in the woods with high-speed internet and ensure that I have Amazon deliveries. That's the first thing I would do. I would also build out a studio room, maybe underground, which could double as a bunker for the impending apocalypse. If you want an example of this, replace the concrete with something more sound-absorbing. Just look up Burt Gummer in Tremors, that basement. Of course, I could have firearms on the wall to prepare for underground worms attacking my basement or the zombie apocalypse, but mainly a studio with good sound isolation would be amazing. I would also probably end up buying the brand new Mac Pro maxed out with everything so I could run multiple thousands of tracks in a single DAW session, and it would probably set me back about 50 grand. Not sure what monitor I would go with though. Definitely not the new Apple monitor. I don't need that. I'm colorblind. Color correction, who cares about color accuracy? My eyes can't even see it. As far as audio gear though, that's really hard. I would definitely have an outboard. 1176 and LA2A compressor because that's what I run on all of my podcasts, and I love the emulations of it. I would just love even more to have the physical versions of it so I could just play around with it and just have that nice little feeling that if the computer died, I could record those compressors to tape. That would be amazing. I guess I would need a tape machine. I need a 2-inch tape machine in perfect working order that I never have to maintenance. That's about $1 billion there, never having to maintenance it. For pre's, I would go Universal Audio 610 and a Neve 1073. For some variation, a couple of channel strips, the Neve Shelfer channel and the Manly Vox box, $5,000. Oh God, that's so much. For interfaces, I would go the current U Audio X8 or X8P, the Apogee Symphony, and currently something like the Rodecaster Pro, just for ease of use if I had to record podcasts with a mix minus or anything like that, super easy. And then maybe I would also throw in a, what is it called? A Go XLR with Mac compatibility. Now I'm just making stuff up that doesn't even exist. For mics, can I just say all of them? I'm working my way towards that, all of them, all the mics. But if I had to pick one, boring, I know, you know what I'm going to say, the SM7B. That's the one that I like the most for my voice. I think it's the most versatile on my voice. And if I could only have one, that's what I'd go with. But I want to hear from you. What would you pick if you had unlimited funding for your studio, for your computer, for all of it? What would your upgrade path be? What would your dream setup be if you had all the money in the world to get it? Love to hear from you. That's going to wrap up for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a little bit different because we focused on one thing, and it's really important to me, which is why I spent so much time on it. I have been panicking over the last 2 weeks thinking, oh my God, YouTube's going to burn. I think it's going to be fine, but I think there's a lot of damage that can be done because these people just want more clicks and they are all battling it out publicly rather than in courts or in boardrooms where it would be much easier to resolve it. That's my take on it. If you guys want to ask questions, send it in to askbandrew@gmail.com. Send it in over SpeakPipe at bandrewscott.com or bandrewsays.com. Want more shows? geeksrising.com. And I will talk to you all next week. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bruh.
Oh, you're still here. Welcome back. I forgot to talk about this during the episode and thought I would leave it in as a bonus at the end. I am using a new microphone. It's a stupid expensive microphone. It is the Antelope Audio Edge Go, a $1,600 USB microphone. And it is an emulation microphone. So right now, I am using the emulation of the Neve U47, I believe it is. And I love how this thing sounds. It sounds phenomenal. This is my favorite emulation on it, I believe. It also has a C12 from AKG. It has the 103. It has a bunch of stuff on there. A Royer R121. Of course, it's not actually labeled that, but that's what I'm using. I am not using the processing that they have because I want to run it through the processing chain I have done in the past. But there you have it. Just wanted to mention that so you know what I was using this week. Crazy microphone. Pretty interesting. I'll use it next week and for 3 more weeks after that. Talk to you later. Bye.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer of Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.